I really want to be working on my INFJ intersection video and my INTJ intersection video to finish the NJs with heavy NI and the intersection of MBTI and personality types for all the NJs. But I cannot get NTPs out of my head, mostly because of ENTP Luigi Mangione, but also other NTPs that I've been studying lately. So it sort of makes me want to dive into my INTP intersection video, which is going to focus on Elon Musk and perhaps Mayim Bialik as INTPs, as empaths, as covert empaths, also as covert borderlines, and covert narcissist wannabes. So there's a little preview there for that. And so, but it's really hard for me to make videos, especially about NP types, because my brain likes to be very comprehensive about what I'm going to say. And there are just millions of things to say and so many segues, and nuances and exceptions to rules and all the other stuff to describe the basket case that are NTP personalities like INTP and ENTP. So I thought I would do a little side project right now, which is looking at ENTP CS Joseph's celebrity typings and showing where they differ with me, because ENTPs are any DOMs. Their dominant cognitive function is extroverted intuition, which is always broadening things. It doesn't like to come to exclusivity or conclusivity or find things to be mutually exclusive of each other or something. So I think that his accuracy is lacking in a lot of ways, because his any orientation is to leave more possibilities open rather than narrow more possibilities down to accuracy. But an NI DOM like me, like an INFJ, is wired to narrow things down to exclusivity and mutual exclusivity, and say this is classified as this, so that makes it mutually exclusive of that, blah, 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 And so I believe that NI DOMs like INFJs like me are more accurate with celebrity typing, because the NI DOMs like ENTP leave too many possibilities open. Like, they will sacrifice accuracy for leaving open other possibilities, So this little video, I'm going to go through his celebrity typing page, and I'm going to point out the ones that I think are like the most insanely incorrect or the most correct, but mostly emphasizing the ones that seem like so out there. Like, how in the world could you, mistype this person so insanely, and just show the arguments that I would give for his mistypes, and then re-emphasize again that I think INFJs as NI DOMs are better at narrowing down to accuracy as far as typing celebrities, because the NE just leaves too many possibilities open, and it gets him all over the place, with celebrity typing. So I'm going to count the ones that I agree with and the ones I don't agree with, and give commentary on all of them for all of the types. And I'm hoping that this will give a preview of a lot of the thoughts that I'm going to come up with in the INTP and ENTP intersection videos. And so I can break down the insights for NTPs into fragments rather than obsessing about getting all of the insights into one video. So okay, so getting into analyzing ENTP CS Joseph's celebrity typings page. First, I'll say I'm not even going to pretend to recognize who a fraction of the people on CS Joseph's celebrity typing list are. A lot of them I don't recognize. And this is one major part of the contrast between how NI DOM INFJ like me type people and how NE DOMs like ENTP CS Joseph type people. The heavy NE and NP types is always broadening things, leaving options open, gathering more new insights instead of re-diving into the old ones, leaving things inconclusive and open-ended, avoiding exclusivity, avoiding limiting of possibilities. While NJ, NI, in contrast, is wired to narrow things down to conclusivity and exclusivity. And also, MPNE is way more ADHD, and it has a greater breadth of content to cover. So NPNE types will demonstrate greater breadth, while NJNI types will demonstrate less breadth but more depth on more narrow subjects. So the nature of NPNE being wired to do the opposite of narrowing things down to conclusivity, I think accuracy suffers when it comes to NE DOMs doing celebrity typing, because the NPNE is always chasing a new idea, and leaving open too many possibilities instead of narrowing down the possibilities to strict mutually exclusive conclusivity as an NJ heavy NI user would be wired to do. So that's all to sell you on the fact that my celebrity typings as an NI DOM INFJ are going to be much more accurate than CS Joseph's as an NE DOM. As an NI DOM, I won't cover nearly as much breadth of people in typing, but the ones I do cover will be examined to the deepest depths, to leave no stone unturned, to do every possible cross-check to come to typing accuracy. So I'm going to go through each of the 16 types on CS Joseph's celebrity typing page and comment on which types are accurate or mistypes and my explanations for why. So for the ESTJ type, Dr. Phil's the most accurate typing I see on this list. I usually mention him as an example for ISTJs and mention Judge Judy as an example for ESTJ. I think Judge Judy should be on this ESTJ list as an obvious ESTJ. Dr. Phil could be an ESTJ. ISTJ is close enough to ESTJ for this typing to be very accurate, the most accurate typing I see on this ESTJ list. Mariah Carey, not sure how he came up with ESTJ, but I see her as an ESFJ. A lot of these ballad crooners are ESFJ covert narcissists mimicking empaths, projecting out their FE extroverted feeling with their sad love songs, just like ISFJ Jelly Roll and ESFJ Taylor Swift, other covert narcissist musicians. I think the same logic goes for ESFJ Jennifer Lopez, who he also typed as an ESTJ. Mariah and JLo are way too feminine to be ESTJ types. I think Maury Povich is an INTP, and INTP can often seem like the reverse type, ESFJ. So I think when CS Joseph is typing Maury Povich as an ESTJ, he's making a similar mistake as he did with JLo and Mariah. He's seeing some ESXJ, and Maury does seem more masculine than Mariah and JLo as an INTP. So he types him as an ESTJ, but at the same time, Maury is pretty feminine in his reverse ESFJ presentation as an INTP. The way he loves all the drama and gossip and relationship shit shows is like many INTP I've seen in real life who act like ESFJ covert narcissist wannabes. Maury is similar as a covert empath wannabe narcissist, just like INTP Elon Musk and INTP Bill Gates, who I will be making a lot of future content about. So that's all I have to say about CS Joseph's ESTJ typings. I'll probably have more to say about intuitive typings than sensor typings since I study intuitive people more deeply, but I still want to comment on ENTP CS Joseph's typings for all 16 of the types. So to recap for where an NIDOM, INFJ, and an NEDOM ENTP agree and disagree on ESTJ typings, we agree Dr. Phil is an obvious STJ type. We need to remember that a lot of sad ballad crooners are ESFJ covert narcissists. And we also need to remember that many people will present as the reverse type, which can throw us off in typing. So INTP Maury presenting as an ESFJ covert narcissist is a good example of that. So NTP types can seem so much like SFJ since they share all the same cognitive function in reverse orders of preference. So when CS Joseph picked up on SJ vibes with Maury, it was because Maury as an INTP often presents as his reverse type ESFJ. As far as the ESTP typings go, I agree that Joe Rogan is an ESTP. I think Donald Trump should be on the ESTP list. I also agree that Amy Lee, Jennifer Connelly, and Megan Fox are ESTP. As far as remembering that a lot of times people present as their reverse type, I think Amy Lee and Jennifer Connelly and Megan Fox, who are on this ESTP list, and also Angelina Jolie, which is not on this list, are a great example of people who often get typed as INFJ, but they're actually ESTP presenting as INFJ under stress or pressure. I find two of the typings on this ESTP list to be very offensive, which are Ian Somerhalder and Tom McDonald. And the reason why I don't like it is because to me they are obvious intuitive empath types who should be recognized as such. Tom McDonald is another silly comedic ENFP type who is part of the neurodiverse minority intuitive population. ENTP Ian Sommerhalder is also an empath, one of those more covert empath NTP types that's less obvious about being an empath, just like his ENTP character Damon Salvatore. I think the way Ian took his family to live on a farm in the middle of nowhere says a lot about how much of an empath he is. Next are ENTJ. Remember, every ENTJ is a born and overt narcissist, regardless of their gender, so every person on this list, if typed accurately as an ENTJ, would be an overt narcissist. Trump being on the ENTJ list reminds me of how ENTJ Conor McGregor is most often mistyped as an ESTP also. I think this is an offensive typing because the minority outlier intuitive population should not be claiming Trump in their population. It's an insult to intuitive intelligence to have a censor like Trump typed as an intuitive. Trump is not intelligent or intuitive enough to be an ENTJ. Conor McGregor is a real ENTJ, and his heavy NI obviously distinguishes him from common personalities when it comes to intelligence. I think Anna Delvey is an obvious ENTJ that should be added to the ENTJ list. Conor McGregor should also be on the ENTJ list. Jenna Ortega should be on the ENTJ list. Pedro Alonso is an ENTJ. Joseph Morgan is also an ENTJ. I know more about intuitive types, especially NJ types, and I have more conviction on these types since I've spent most of my time studying NJ types with heavy NI. So reading over the list fully again, I just want to reemphasize my jaw is on the floor and I'm like, WTF, WTF, WTF when I see some of these names. Like, you really think those common personalities are the most rare outlier intuitive NJ-NI users? As if Lucille Ball is an ENTJ. As if Jessica Simpson is an ENTJ. I think most of the people on this list are not even close to ENTJ. So C.S. Joseph's celebrity typings list should be taken quite lightly on the whole because of the major inaccuracies inherent in NPNE, which is not able to narrow things down to mutual exclusivity. Okay, the ENTJ list is upsetting me from so much wrongness. So moving on to ENFJ. Similar to ENTJ typings list, I'm just shaking my head at who ENTP C.S. Joseph has grouped in with my fellow NJ-NI users, and pretty much all of his typings have to be wrong as far as ENFJs. NJ-NI users are the rarest types in the world, so I get it's hard to find some examples, but that doesn't mean it's helpful to have just a list of a bunch of people who are definitely not ENFJ types. So yeah, I think this whole list is crap. Britney Spears is an ISFJ covert narcissist ballad crooner like the ESFJ ones I mentioned, like Taylor Swift and Mariah Carey. She's not intuitive or intelligent enough to be an NI user. She's an obvious heavy SI user. Roseanne Barr is similarly an SFJ type, not an intuitive NI user. Martin Luther King Jr. may be correct, not sure. I think Jamie Lee Curtis is an excellent example of a famous ENFJ. Robert Pattinson is also an excellent example of ENFJ, and I made a video about him playing ENFJ Reverend Preston Teagarden. Leah Pipes is also a great example of an ENFJ who played an ENFJ character, Camille O'Connell. Okay, going on to ESFJs. For the ESFJ list, we agree on Oprah Winfrey as an obvious ESFJ. I think Taylor Swift should be on this obvious ESFJ list along with the other ballad, crooner, covert narcissist ESFJ types previously mentioned like Mariah Carey and Jennifer Lopez. Jelly Roll's wife, Bunny XO, is also an ESFJ, and Lori Vallow is also an ESFJ. Ben Affleck is a feeler dom, but not an FE dom, an FI dom. So heavy FI, so I think he's ISFP. Ben Affleck's heavy FI as an ISFP getting with an ESFJ like J-Lo reminds me of ISFP Chris Watts and ESFJ Shanann Watts, and how the SP types are drawn to the SJ types for taking control of details in life and running the show and stuff, because the SPs are so carefree and immature and childlike, but then they also are really passive-aggressive and start hating those SJ wives for being so controlling. So Ben is a clear FI Dom ISFP in my book. Moving on to ESFPs, I think Jane Williamson or Jane Insane is the best ESFP representation on the internet, so I would add her to an ESFP list. I think she's the ESFPist ESFP YouTuber. I just want to mention that before I start commenting on C.S. Joseph's ESFP list. C.S. Joseph has Taylor Swift on the ESFP list, but no. She's definitely an ESFJ type. I've made a video about her analyzing her heavy SI. Her anti-hero song has the mental conversations of heavy SI user SJ personality all over it. Drew Barrymore is an offensive typing to me on this ESFP list because she's an obvious empath and ENFP personality. She's gifted, neurodiverse, outlier, intuitive empath, so she should be recognized as such. On to ENTPs. So for ENTP types, I agree that Weird Al and Ryan Reynolds as obvious ENTP types. I would expect as an ENTP himself, C.S. Joseph might be able to best accurately spot ENTP types, but after going over this list, I think that's a big nope. At least I think ENTP C.S. Joseph typed himself accurately as ENTP, but his ENTP list is very bogus, just like all his other lists. Most of the ENTP list, I'm thinking, what? You think these common sensor personalities are ENTP? As if Machine Gun Kelly, a dumb SFP type, is a neurodiverse ENTP. As if DMX is ISFP, not ENTP. It's astounding to me how C.S. Joseph can clump so many common sensors in with neurodiverse minority intuitive types. Johnny Depp is definitely an INFP, not an ENTP. Winona Ryder is definitely an INFP, not an ENTP. Tupac is definitely an ENFJ and NJ serious type, not an ENTP NP silly type. Penn Badgley is definitely an INFJ NJ serious type, not an ENTP NP silly type. Robert Pattinson is definitely an ENFJ type, not an ENTP type. I think Nicolas Cage is more NFP with heavy FI than NTP with FE. I think Ian Somerhalder should be on the ENTP list. I think Daniel Gillies is ENTP. I would add ENTP Bryan Cranston and ENTP Bob Odenkirk. ENFP, I agree with Robin Williams as an obvious ENFP. Grimes, Alicia Silverstone, Drew Barrymore, Brittany Murphy, Will Ferrell should be on the obvious ENFPs list. Andrew Huberman is an obvious TJ overt narcissist type, most likely ENTJ type, not an ENFP empath type, so I don't know what C.S. Joseph was smoking with that one. The only way it makes sense to mix up NFP with NTJ types is they both have FI and TE, but otherwise, wow. Conor McGregor as an ENFP empath, what? Laughing my ass off, what the WTF? No, Connor is an ENTJ with heavy NI and a TE Dom overt narcissist precluded from being an empath. On to the ISTJ list, which has very short commentary. John Travolta is ISFP, not ISTJ. He is so feminine. And now for ISTP. Bob Odenkirk is an offensive typing since he's an ENTP intuitive empath who should be recognized as such. I can't believe an ENTP would type an obvious ENTP as an ISTP. Is he trying to get rid of competition or what? I don't get it at all. Mind blown. My God. C.S. Joseph's typings drive my NTI insane from inaccuracies, especially when typing intuitives as sensors or sensors as intuitives. Shake my head. I agree that Eminem is an obvious ISTP. I think Christian Bale should be on the obvious ISTP list. Amber Heard should be on the obvious ISTP list. Justin Timberlake is an ISFP FI Dom, not an ISTP TI Dom. On to INTJs. 50 Cent? Oh, hell no. 50 Cent being on this list demonstrates how a lot of times people have such a strong third function, they can be typed as if their third function is their dominant. So 50 Cent as an ISFP has such strong NI, sometimes people think he's an NI Dom. But no, he's not even a neurodiverse intuitive. No matter how strong the NI is in the third position, it's not heavy enough to make him officially an intuitive personality, a neurodiverse outlier minority personality. Again, this list nauseates me, seeing so many obvious sensors thrown on this list with INTJs who are outlier minorities that are nothing like common personalities. As if Beyonce is an INTJ. I think C.S. Joseph just made this wacky, retarded list just so NI users like me would freak out about inaccuracies. And it's working, because I hate reading all of these inaccurate typings. So insanely inaccurate. Typing common personalities as outlier minority types is serious mistyping. Amber Heard, again, is an ISTP, not an INTJ. Grimes is an ENFP, not an INTJ. Again, NFP and NTJ both have FI and TE in common, so that could be the cause of a mix-up. But still, NTJs are overt narcissists, while NFPs are empaths. So it shouldn't be that hard to distinguish them. Same exact argument for ENFP Post Malone that C.S. Joseph mistyped as INTJ. Jenna Ortega is an ENTJ that's close enough to INTJ to be almost accurate. So we'll say that's an agreement. Hillary Clinton is not an intuitive personality. She's ESTJ, not INTJ or ENTJ. Kate Winslet as an INTJ. Again, C.S. Joseph, what the are you? You're killing me, man. Katy Perry as an INTJ. Okay, C.S. Joseph just killed me with inaccurate typing. I just had an aneurysm from inaccuracies. Walt Disney is INTP, not ENTJ. An INTP covert empath narcissist wannabe, but not an actual overt narcissist like ENTJs. Richard Feynman, ENTP, not ENTJ. Empath versus narcissist again. INFJs. I think Teal Swan is another ESTP presenting as INFJ sometimes, so she's not officially an INFJ. I don't think anyone on this list are real INFJs. He should have put INFJ Penn Badgley as an INFJ, but he wanted to claim him as ENTP for himself. Lol. Can't blame you. Tobin Bell should be on the INFJ list, and Vera Farmiga. Okay, on to ISFJs. Amy Adams seems more intuitive, possibly INFJ. I wouldn't insult her by typing her ISFJ. Ryan Gosling is an FP type, heavy FI user, not an SFJ type. Kathy Bates should be on the ISFJ list along with Britney Spears as obvious ISFJs. And on to ISFPs. ISFP, I agree with Rihanna as an obvious ISFP. Brian Cranston is an offensive typing as ISFP when he's an intuitive ENTP type. Seems like C.S. Joseph wants to make other ENTP types look a lot less cool than they are or something. Marilyn Manson is definitely INFJ, not ISFP. Lana Del Rey and Justin Timberlake and John Travolta and Michael Jackson should be on the ISFP list as obvious ISFPs. And on to INTPs. I agree with Bill Gates and Elon Musk being INTP. I think Tom Holland is ENFP, not INTP. I would add Mayim Bialik to an INTP list. And on to INFPs. I agree with Keanu Reeves as an INFP. Lana Del Rey should not be on the INFP list. She should be on the ISFP list. Same exact argument for Michael Jackson. Russell Brand is ENFP, not INFP. That's close enough to INFP, though, to say that we're in agreement. Winona Ryder and Johnny Depp should definitely be on the INFP list. But he left them on the ENTP list incorrectly. So even though I said I don't recognize all the people he listed and I haven't studied them all in depth, I get an overall sense that at least 9 out of 10 of his typings are not accurate, just from using the general sensor versus intuitive typing dichotomies and seeing how many mistakes he makes there. So overall, for all 16 of the types, I find approximately 9 times out of 10 C.S. Joseph's typings will be wrong. They will be all over the freaking place. Wrong because he left way too many possibilities open instead of narrowing things down to mutual exclusivities. I think C.S. Joseph is prophetic with insights on cognitive functions in MBTI, but just because the heavy NP-NE orientation to not narrow down possibilities, I think you have to be extremely wary of his celebrity typings. Take them as possibilities and suggestions, definitely not as gospel. As opposed to my celebrity typing, since I don't make content about a wide breadth of possibilities. I make content about a narrow range of mutually exclusive certainties. So I have some afterthoughts and additions to my celebrity typing list, and one correction I'm going to give back to C.S. Joseph. So I'm going to give back Tom Holland, who he said was INTP and I said was probably ENFP. I had never really dug into him. He was an obvious NP with heavy NE extroverted intuition, but I never really dug into him. But and I was just giving associations off the top of my head and stuff. So, but yeah, I agree that Tom Holland probably is an INTP. He's like one of the most serious INTPs. All NP-NE types are silly types compared to NJ types that are serious. But the INTPs are the most serious of the sillies. You know, they're more reserved and blah, 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 and quiet. So Tom Holland, yeah, he reminds me of like INTP Callan McAuliffe that I made a video about. So I think that C.S. Joseph was correct about Tom Holland being INTP. So I'm giving that back. And then I have just a few more additions to add to my celebrity typing list. So for ENFJs, I would say Patrick Swayze and Dr. Romani. INFJs, Paul Wesley, Danielle Campbell, Al Pacino, Mel Gibson. INTJs, Pamela Rabe, Matthew McFadden. ENTJs, Evan Spiegel. ISTJ's Martha Stewart, ESTJ Gordon Ramsay, ISFJ Jelly Roll, ESFJ David Sumney and Bunny XO, INFP Anthony Perkins, Timothy Treadwell, Johnny Depp, ENFP Alicia Silverstone, Brittany Murphy, Shia Bialouf, INTPs Dahmer, Jeffrey Dahmer, Ted Kaczynski, Ed Kemper, Evan Peters, Mark Zuckerberg, Dr. Todd Grande, ENTPs, the YouTuber Jay Beach, ISFPs, Kevin Costner and Dee Devlin, ESFPs, Tim Allen and the YouTuber Jay Sharon, ISTPs, Christian Bale and Kristen Stewart, ESTPs, Bailey Sarian, Dana White, and Charlie Hunnam. So I want to say again that C.S. Joseph is prophetic, and he is doing a lot for the MBTI community by focusing on things like cognitive functions, although he makes it way more complicated by going into things like 4 sides of the mind and other things like that in his own categorizations. So I think his NPNE makes him make a lot of things more complicated, whereas me as an NJNI user, I try to synthesize it and break it down to like the most important points. So narrowing it down to what's most important while he's always broadening things. So I think he does a lot for what he is, a NPNE user. He does a lot for the MBTI community. And his Who Are the Type videos and his Virtue Vice videos are very prophetic, you know. But again, I will just say that because of the nature of his NPNE, to always broadening things and never narrow things down to exclusivity, that his celebrity typing is almost all wrong. It's basically as good as a ballparking test. Just like I tell people, like MBTI tests are ballparking tests. They don't just tell you your accurate type when you take them, you know, for most people. They just get you in the ballpark of your possible accurate type, and you have to study the cognitive functions to figure out your true type. And similarly, like when C.S. Joseph types people with his NPNE, like it's like ballparking. It gets you in the ballpark. It gets you set in a direction. Like, you know, if he says that, I can't think of an example right now, but if he says someone is like ISFP, but they're actually ENTJ, and you're like, what? You know, how could they do that? And it's because like they're the reverse of each other. So that's how they get mixed up or whatever else, you know. There are lots of different ways that different cross checks that get people mixed up. And so that's what happens. Most of his typings, it's like, oh, you're going in the right direction, or you saw something that was correct, but you came to the almost right conclusion or whatever. So I would take his celebrity typings as ballparking, just like the MBTI test.